So I just want to take a moment to actually explain the delay. That's a bit of a tricky thing to understand. Basically, the delay is the time. The delay basically from from the end of the last action to the beginning of the new action. Um, I'll show an example. So basically, this action layer is the zooming out of the of this image here. I'm going to add another image that doesn't actually really belong to this comic, but just for purposes of explanation. So this is a PNG file. So if you've used Photoshop, you know that if you have something on a layer and you turn off the background and export it as a PNG, it becomes a transparent floating object. You can see the dimensions of the image. Actually, you see where the dots for the handles are, but the entire background is transparent. So I've just added another action layer with an image attached to it. So what I want to do is, for start and end, I'm going to do the same basic thing that I did before. To start, I'm going to enlarge, make it a 0 opacity, and the end will just end up right in the middle at 100%. And I'll give it a duration of 2 seconds, and I'll do the ease in and out. So this takes 2 seconds to happen. I'm gonna make it 2 seconds as well, just for our purposes here. So this takes 2 seconds and a half. It'll occur and end, and then the second layer will fade in and zoom out as well, one after another. Let's take a look at that preview page. Right, so exactly as we expected. But what if you wanted both of them to happen at the same time? What you would do is, this takes 2 seconds to happen. You want it to happen exactly the same time as before. So if you put -2, it would actually happen before the beginning of the second layer, basically going back in time. So instead of happening afterwards, it will happen at the same time as number 1. So 2 and 1 should happen at the same time. They both take 2 seconds. Right. Now what if you want this number 2 to happen in the middle of the action in layer 1? So basically, halfway through the action in layer 1, you want the satellite to start fading in, and it'll actually it'll finish zooming out a second after the layer 1 has ended. So what I can do is put -1 instead, and let's take a look at that. So that's exactly what I expected. Hopefully that explains it. So I'm not sure how well that I explained it. So some of you might find this a bit existential. I'm gonna try to explain a little better in a chart. So in this chart, the time progresses from the beginning, 0 seconds, and goes up 1 second at a time, onwards towards the right, and the layer actions are in red. Layer action number 1, which is the background, takes 2 seconds to happen, and with a delay of 0, which means once the comic starts, it starts right away. So the second layer action takes 2 seconds as well, with a layer of 0. What the 0 means is there is no wait from the end of the first action to the start of the second action. So right after the end of the first action, however long that is, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, without delay, the second action should happen. So that's what the delay means. Now, in one of the scenarios I showed you, I wanted to time it so they both happen at the same time. So if I put in, as I showed you in that example, a -2 delay, that means the beginning point of the center of the second layer action moves back 2 seconds, in which case both of these happen at the same time and they're in sync. So alternatively, if I put a delay of -1, so I basically was like, this was 0. If I put in -1, the start of the second layer action starts, moves back 1 second. So what happens is the first action happens, and midway through it, the second layer comes in, halfway through the first layer's action. And then even after the first layer action has ended, there's a 1 second overlap where the satellite keeps on moving. If you want to rewind the video, you can see that happening. So again, 0 is the happens right after the end of the last action. If I want to add a positive value, if I put a +2 seconds, the start will move up 2 seconds, and what happened is the first action would happen, and then it would just remain still at the whatever position and opacity the action ends at, and then it'll wait 2 seconds, and then the second layer of action. In fact, I'll show you that, and that's what exactly will happen. So back to the creation machine. As you can see, again, here's our 2 layers. In the second layer, I'm going to make it +2, and as you remember, the first layer is just duration of 2 and a delay of 0. So what will happen is I'm going to preview the page. The first action happens, it just stays there for 2 seconds, and then the second layer action happens.